So this is just We the People News. I was actually fixing to pass out, go to sleep, but I was kind of rumbling through YouTube, and this came about. And I thought it was really interesting, which I'm not going to do the whole video on this, but it brought up things that was kind of interesting. Now, that being said, I'm not an attorney, not giving legal advice. Never look straight forward. Always look around you to be able to protect yourself by any means necessary. Arm yourself with knowledge. Okay, I'm hearsay. So take everything I say with a grain of salt and protect yourselves. Okay. Um, this is You Are Law. Some of you guys may or may not have this, but
Congress needs to write clearer decisions. And also, we need a lot fewer laws. And so one of the subjects that's going to cover tonight is how Justice.
Okay. So, anywho, I thought it'd be interesting because there's a couple of deals. Gorsuch has actually kind of written a book, come find out. This is the first time I heard about it, the reason why I'm making one of the videos. Now, he's also saying, hey, there's too many lawsuits out there, right? Well, and laws. But they don't, he, and this is why I'm trying to get at you guys through a long period of time, right? Uh, statute, codes, rules, and regulations. Okay, they're just rules. All right, and it's administrative rules from the statute down. All right, and we've been so trained and so dumbed down that it actually applies to the people when it don't. It applies to the person. Or the person is a creature of the state of some form of business, trust, commerce, slash a couple of other things that's business oriented. Okay. Um, it's hard to argue that in court because they're not going to admit to anything because, well, um, they got sovereign citizen immunity. And again, we're allowed to do wrong. You just can't do, you just can't hold your ground. All right, let's go with this a little bit. I guess I'm going to have to fast forward this a little bit. Because the important part is right up in this area.
There we go. So you'll find this file in your premium member traffic folder. I think this has some really good points, and this was somewhat based upon some review of this Supreme Court decision. This is a way to challenge traffic court, something we just added in here, and it's based purely on, can they really force you, even though you have a license? Let's say you do have or you don't have. Maybe you're traveling just with your passport card, which is what a lot of people do instead of having the license. But if they say, well, you need to have a license, you need to have this, you need to do that, you got to follow this rule, these regulations. Well, okay, do you have jurisdiction to tell me that? Okay.
So sit and think about that, right? Do we give them authority to and give them jurisdiction in order to tell me that? Or are they forcing me into a quasi contract and all this kind of stuff? Now, I understand there's a lot of things out there that we talked about, right? Me personally, I've read some of the traffic codes and all that kind of stuff and looked up the definitions. I do know for a fact of my research, it's all commerce. Okay. And I do believe that the whole administrative thing is putting everybody in commerce with the legal person. And that's how they get you into the commerce umbrella.
And this is a petition for redress of grievances to correct the malfeasance associated with the administration of justice. They're administering their own justice. They can't do that now. So this document, you can go read it. It's, I don't know how many pages it is. It's quite a few. But you could pick and choose a lot of this or use the whole thing to challenge a traffic case. But you could use it to challenge any administrative agency. You're just going to have to change some language because most of this was written for a traffic case. But you could go find your own law and take the same approach on that. You know, we're not here, by the way, to break down the system. We're not here to destroy the system. We're trying to show that the system's gone way over it, way extended, way beyond its authority and its limits. In the elections are talking about the administrative state. Not enough, by the way, but the administrative state, or some call it the deep state, whatever you want to call it. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about this whole level of government that doesn't exist, yet it runs the whole system. It doesn't exist because the statutes aren't properly, fully implemented. And this is across many federal and state statutes. So if you take that mindset as you look at a case, you're looking for the defect in their case. Well, let's start with their very jurisdiction. They may say they have it, and you ask the court, I want you to tell me if you have jurisdiction. Well, they're going to say, well, we have it, because they know what you don't know what you're asking. You have to put it in the proper motion and use the proper legal argument. Okay, takes some work, but with this new case law, this new Supreme Court case, you do have an additional tool to use. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I see people raising their hands. That's fine. I won't be taking any questions till we go through certain portions of our teaching. Let's see. And, I even changed the headline to our website. Everyone has a legal issue at some point. We're drowning in statutes, codes, and contracts, including bank debt, civil issues, or even criminal matters. A lot of them are created by federal agencies, not by Congress. They may cite a congressional act, but the implementation of it's got to be fully explained to the public so you know what the law even says. And that's usually not done.
Exactly. It's got to be clearly established for the men and women, easily read to understand. Or we'll just be running out and accidentally breaking all kinds of crimes.
So, something to think about. Let's go to the Gorsuch article quickly here. So it says, Neil Gorsuch says Americans are getting thwacked by too many laws. Sorry about the dog. As Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch sees it, an explosion in the complexity of the nation's regulations. Now, notice he's not saying laws, regulations. Regulations are agency things. Is overburdening Americans and often trampling their rights and livelihoods. Guys, this is why this is the one part I like about what Trump did is he pushed for constitutional-oriented judges rather than political-oriented judges. This is not a political thing. This is according to what the Constitution says. So less than a century ago, the laws of the United States could fit into a single book. Less than a century ago. But since they've swelled to fill enough volumes to take up an entire shelf in his office, Gorsuch said Thursday night during a conversation with the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley. The Federal Register is where you actually do fully implement. So there's way more regulations than are in the Federal Register. But here's what he says. Federal Register listing government regulations is now 60,000 pages. Do you guys have all that memorized? And the number of federal crimes has grown roughly 5,000 by some estimates. So he's got a new book called Overruled, The Human Toll of Too Much Law. You might want to go look that up on Amazon.
I have to agree because educationally speaking, right, where do you get the best information? But directly from the mindset of a Supreme Court justice that overhears lots of cases, even though I am led to believe and do believe, he's taken too many cases in the statute area and not in the constitutional area, and they still create a bypass of trickery of words to say, yeah, you had this right, but it's not a full right. And so you just got to word it correctly where we can just violate your rights. When other Supreme Court says a right is inalienable, right? You cannot change your right into a privilege. But yet they use trickery of words and they change a right to a privilege.
Actually just saw the title of his book this week. I'm getting it.
Enhances geez. I had it a second ago before I paused this. Versus Terry. Pennsylvania Mims, right? Oh, it's just a moderate intrusion of your Fourth Amendment. It's just moderate. It's just moderate. So we're allowed to moderate your Fourth Inalienable rights to be secure in your houses and papers and effects. It's modern inconvenience that you must speak automatically. I'm invoking the Fourth, and but or the Fifth. But since you're in silence, you can be in silence acquiescence, and you still tacitly agree to our terms. So you still lose.
You guys should invest a little time in kind of getting the big picture, because it's going to show you how these agencies are going way beyond their authority. Okay, so the overruled the human toll of too much law, which he co-wrote with former clerk Janine Nitz. Judge Gorsuch said that the ever-expanding system has created, I can't pronounce this word, and probably I'll end up making it sound like a swear word or something, confessed of maze, where Americans sometimes violate rules and regulations they did not know existed. Sound good? Compliance has become overly onerous and even regulated.
So we know, remember, everything's very important. Need to look up the definition of this word. So I'm recording this so I can keep it on my file because I got to look up that definition of words, right? I may start using that instead of trickery of words. Huh.
Sometimes don't know the laws they're being tasked to enforce. Okay? So he's been a judge now 20 years. He told the regular library audience, I've just seen so many cases come through my court where ordinary Americans, decent, hardworking people who are trying to do their best are just getting thwacked by laws unexpectedly. Sound familiar, folks? That's why we developed UR Law. We're on the same page with what he's thinking. This is really where you can put some focus, okay? Anyway, he goes into it in his book. He talks about the commercial fisherman case in Florida, where essentially they put this company into bankruptcy because of there was some destruction of tangible objects that were impeding the federal investigation. And who even knows what that is? And of course, they put this guy through hell. He ultimately won his case, but who wants to have to go through that? Well, now there's Supreme Court precedent to help you win those kind of cases. All right. Anyway, so I'm just giving you a quick overview of the article. You can find this on what site is this on? It says MSN, but he was an interview on Fox News. You can look on Fox News for Gorsuch interview, and a couple of other places that he's done some interviews. He did Wall Street Journal recently and so forth. Here's the bottom line is I think what I heard recently during the Reagan era, there were something like 300 federal statutes. Now there's over 5,000. I mean, who does that benefit? Ask yourself, who does that benefit? The legal industry. Who writes these rules, regulations? The legal industry. Who profits from it? The legal industry. Are you getting it? I don't have anything against every lawyer that ever walked the planet. I have many friends. I just had a visit with a judge this weekend who I like talking to. Very open-minded and likes talking about these things. But that industry has gotten out of control because it's writing its own existence. It's writing its own script by creating more of these rules, regulations, and laws. Because every time somebody else gets brought in, they need more lawyers, right? So we're way out of balance. The good news is, like that idea I just gave you on that one document, I've got some others that we're eventually going to be bringing out. I'm just trying to finish up all the preliminary work on the delete debt course and getting most of those modules up. But I want to do a next phase where we bring in the constitutional basis and really focusing, because you really can use this. People, I don't trust the courts and they're all corrupt criminals and they're all whatever. The reality is you got to focus on put the burden of proof on them. They have authority. That's always the first thing I've always taught. Not about you. It's not about your status even as much as put the burden of proof on them to prove their authority. And that authority should come from some law that's implemented and clearly explained somewhere. And if it's not, then the court needs to interpret it. And you see the problem for them? They can't do that. They really can't. They're using administrative tribunals to make law. They can't do that. We have to understand there's only 3 branches of government, not 4. And they're using a 4th branch of government that doesn't exist. So that's the basis of the challenge. And then they're violating your constitutional rights when they do all these things. When they enforce these things against you, they were administratively created by a tribunal and not actually implemented fully by Congress or the legislature of your state. It may appear to, they may have written something, but they could be going beyond it with their own internal regulatory authorities. So understand the difference between a law and a regulation. That's where you got to understand. And they are going off regulations as to how they do things. All right. There's one other point I wanted to make about statutes. But what I'll do is I'm going to go over here and first of all, I want to start with success stories. And everybody tonight, keep in mind also that we're focusing tonight on our premium member content and this discussion tonight.
All right. So if you guys want to learn a little bit more, geez, what was it again? You Are Law. Okay. And yeah, it does cost money to be on their site and all that kind of stuff, but you're going to have a lot of access to it. Okay. I was on their deal at one time. A lot of things has changed in my life where I end up having to move into different situations. I need to get back on there. Just a bunch of other stuff is going on in my life. So, but it is actually a good place to go. That being said, right, he got involved. Number one, he spent 7 years fighting the CPS and finding out a bunch of things is wrong with this picture, and just started promoting these things of his research and all that, and how and eventually ended up getting his offsprings back and all that kind of stuff. But he fought it for so long, and some of that was using an attorney that made him go in deeper into the rabbit hole. And it's like, wait a minute, how is this even possible? And then he had to start representing himself and all that kind of stuff. Jason We the People News. Bye, y'all.